This is Design Safe Radio, where natural hazards researchers strive to make our society more resilient to everything nature throws at us.
Hello, and welcome to another episode of Design Safe Radio. Super excited to have you here today. We've got 3 REU students who are working at the SimCenter this summer. We have William Zaka, Aditha Nair, and Claire Sorensen. Welcome, guys. Good to have you.
Happy to be here.
Yep, happy to be here.
So, undergraduates, so long ago. How did you guys get into working with the SimCenter? What's some of your background and what interested you about it? We'll go William, Aditya, and finish up with Claire.
Okay, so first of all, I'm a rising senior at the University of Texas at Austin. I study civil engineering. Yeah, welcome. Over the past few years, I've gotten more interested in geotechnical engineering. I've also worked with some of the geotechnical faculty at my university, and a lot of them talked to me about this program, and I sort of read about it on my own, and so thought it was really interesting. So decided to.
You got sucked into the Dr. Stokey Kool-Aid then, huh?
Yeah. So I thought it was cool. I applied and ended up here for the summer.
That's great. Yeah, UT Austin has just some really quality faculty down there. Got to meet a few of them. Dr. Stokey you mentioned, of course, and Farnu Mung at the Shake Table, and everybody at Design Safe. Really, really good group of people down there.
I've worked with Dr. Mokhtar too. I don't know if you know him.
Oh yeah. I met him a couple times. He's great.
Yeah.
Cool. Aditya, how about you?
Yeah, so thanks for having me on, first of all, Dan. So I am a rising senior at The Ohio State University in Columbus.
All right. I won't hold it against you, though. I went to Illinois and I work at Purdue.
It's okay. I like your guys' tennis team, so that works out.
There you go.
But yeah, I started getting interested in geotechnical engineering, like Will said as well, through one of my mentors at OSU, Dr. Purdell. He's actually the only faculty in geotech at Ohio State, and I really loved his class, and so I decided to get involved in undergraduate research with him, and he kind of pressed me to apply to research during the summer outside of Ohio State and within. So I decided to apply to a couple RU programs, and I'm happy and I'm lucky that I got this one.
That's great. Glad to have you in the Neri family, and good to see some Big Ten representation.
Yeah, thank you.
How about you, Claire?
I'm also going into my senior year, but I go to the University of North Carolina, Wilmington.
Awesome.
I'm actually a coastal engineering major, but I started out as a physics major and I had no idea what I was going to do with that. So UNCW introduced this new program of coastal engineering, so I got into that. And then one of my professors recommended the REU program to me as a rising engineer, and I applied, and it's been a blast. So,
how did you decide to go from physics to coastal engineering? Aside from the fact that coastal engineers get to go to some of the coolest places in the world.
I wasn't sure what I wanted to do with my physics degree. I always really enjoyed science and the creative side that comes with engineering, but UNCW didn't offer an engineering degree. I would have to go to NC State for a dual program. So then my freshman year, they first introduced the coastal engineering program, so I kind of just looked into it a little bit more and decided that's what I wanted to do with my science background, and so I just kind of dove into it.
No pun intended. I love a good coastal engineering pun. Awesome. It's so cool to see a variety of backgrounds and experience and paths of career. So so you're working with the SimCenter through the network is headquartered over at UC Berkeley, but people working in the SimCenter all over the place. Excuse me. So what have you been able to experience this summer? What has that experience been like so far?
I guess we can follow the same order. I'll
yeah,
go.
Sure. We can go in any order from here.
Yeah. So I've been working with Dr. Adam Zarnokse, who's a postdoc at Stanford, so not Berkeley either. Yeah. And so really working at the SimCenter, you get to meet a lot of people from all over the place, right? So We've also been working with Dr. Arduino from the University of Washington.
Oh, he's
Yeah,
great.
and yeah, Dr. Maurer from the University of Washington as well. So it really it gives you the chance to have a lot of resources from all over the place and collaborate on the project together.
What kinds of projects have you been able to work on so far?
So what we're working on is developing like a high resolution soil model for the city of Alameda in California, to have to gather a list of input parameters that can be used in a site response analysis. And so we're getting things like shear wave velocity and liquefaction information, liquefiable soil layers and their depths and relative density and things like that, that we'll be able to use to run a site response analysis. So that's the project in a nutshell.
So for the non-geotechnical engineers in the audience, me being one of them, what is a site response analysis, and why are those parameters that you're getting important to it?
So basically what we're looking at is when, in the case of an earthquake, when you have some ground motions, you're seeing how those ground motions will propagate to the surface and what's the actual liquefaction and ground shaking risks associated with that. And so basically assessing the damage that could propagate from the earthquake.
And so those are data that already exist, and you're pulling that together, or?
So yeah, we're using a lot of different resources, some USGS maps and some other data. We have CPT data and borehole data and a lot of, so it's really a lot of combining that sort of information and using some predictive models to get a bit more information on the rest of it.
Oh, okay, cool. And the other two, you were working on the same project, or they got you working on some different things?
So I'm working on something very similar involving soil liquefaction or earthquake-induced liquefaction as well. But I'm using the SimCenter's QuoFem application, which is a uncertainty quantification tool that uses finite element method. So looking at, a block of soil or a certain profile of soil through the use of certain elements. So you can think of it as like pixels on a screen, and those elements consist of nodes, and you look at the stress and strain of those nodes when an earthquake affects that soil profile. So I'm using the QuoFem application to calibrate a model developed at the UC Davis Centrifuge Center. And that model it's very well known. It's a material model called PM4 SAN, created by Dr. Boulanger and Ziatopolo over there. And kind of similar to what Will said, we are trying to find out the parameters that best match a data set that they had tested at that centrifuge of a sample of something called Ottawa F65 sand. And that's basically what we're doing. So it's kind of a 3-step process. First, it's called sensitivity analysis, where I look at the influence of certain parameters that go into that model on the outcome of that model. So see which parameters are trivial or don't affect like the output of the model as much. From there, I perform something called Bayesian calibration, which is trying to find the range, like a probabilistic range of the value of those parameters that could match that experimental data that we have from the Centrifuge Center. And then lastly, with the help of Dr. Arduino as well from the University of Washington, he provided my team, so that's 2 postdocs, Dr. Akash Satish and Dr. Song Ri, both from UC Berkeley at the SimCenter. And what we're doing is using a sand column model that he provided that is slightly sloped and has different profiles. It has 3 layers. And we're going to input a simulated motion of the Loma Prieta earthquake that happened a couple years ago, and seeing how the parameters that we got from the calibration affect how that model behaves. And we are trying to see how, if the soil undergoes lateral displacement or lateral spreading. So it's a pretty dense project, but I'm excited to be a part of it.
Yeah, that's awesome. And I think it speaks to one of the advantages of the SimCenter being part of a wider network of facilities within the area. You've got both expertise as well as world-class facilities from UC Davis, from the University of Washington, from UC Berkeley, all working together. So Claire, what have they got you working on this summer?
So my project is pretty different than the other two because I'm not in the geotechnical field. So what I'm working on is kind of building a hybrid model to predict storm surges. So what we're doing is we're taking like data from like the National Hurricane Center, and we're taking storm surge data, and we're making geoclaw simulations, so the 2D shallow water solver geoclaw. And from geoclaw, we're getting these outputs of storm parameters, and we're trying to create a neural network using TensorFlow that's going to take all these storm parameters and be able to match them up with storm classification. So basically, it's combining like the physics-based model of geoclaw with like the neural network-based model, and it's gonna kind of cut back on like the computational cost that comes with running storm surge simulations. And we're trying to see if we can get better by doing this. So it's just a long process of trying to train a model to recognize data and all that.
Wow. When you say neural network, you're meaning like you're going to feed it an input from this 2D computational framework, and you're going to say, this is what we mean when we give you this, and train it to recognize those on its own.
Yeah, pretty much.
Wow. So what will that allow you to do when this is finished? Like go from, a few hours on a supercomputer to a few, minutes or something?
Yeah, so I am not necessarily sure how much it's going to cut back on, but right now, like certain storm surge simulations, you're not able to predict it in fast enough time where you can evacuate people quickly enough.
Mm-hmm.
So my outcome, because I'm only working on this project for about 10 weeks, my outcome is just going to be the very basic model, in which it's able to take these input storm parameters and output other storm parameters basically as kind of like a classification. And over time, we're hoping to be able to make this model more of a generalized thing. So we're hoping to be able to have community members utilize it and other researchers utilize it, because over time it'll become more generalized and be able to actually, like, you'll be able to actually input storm surge or information that you know about a storm surge, and it'll output like other information about this storm. So you'll be able to understand like what impacts the storm is going to have.
That's super important. Every time a hurricane comes in, I've always got friends and family who live down in South. Okay, when's storm surge going to hit? Where's it going to go? And we can get pretty granular with our storm surge modeling computations of the southeastern United States. But you go to a place like India, for example, where there's a lot less of the input parameters, right, are known there, but they get hit by a typhoon, and we can't predict as well or as quickly the storm surge impact on places like Kolkata, where a friend of mine lives, and I was trying to help him out with the existing data that we have, and it's like, yeah, I can only tell you within about a mile of where you are. That's just isn't all that helpful, and I can't tell you very quickly either, because it doesn't compute as fast as we need it to. So yeah, super relevant research and really, really needed in the world. So that's awesome. How has the past few weeks of you guys working on these projects changed your perspective of a career in research? Were you intending to get into research before and have changed now? Or I know Claire, you mentioned you were in physics before and now changed to coastal engineering. So what has changed for you guys in terms of kind of your career path, if anything, since starting the REU program?
I think for me, I always kind of planned to continue to grad school, at least for a master's, but the REU program really pushed me more to consider continuing for a PhD and like a more research-based career opportunity later on. So I think that was not really a shift, but like more of a reinforcement to that idea.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm with Will on that. I always planned to go into once I started getting involved in research at OSU, I kind of realized that I really like doing, research within geotechnical engineering, and this RU program has just kind of fortified that idea. But it's also made me consider more of the option of like computational geomechanics, and kind of opened the door to me or for me for a lot of other subfields of geotech that I wouldn't have considered before being in this program. So it's been a good experience.
That's great.
Yeah, I kind of agree with that. I've always felt like I was going to go into more of the research side of engineering rather than the industry side. And I've been going back and forth with that and talking to different professors and stuff. But after being in this program, I kind of gotten a better feel for what like the research side of engineering is, and how just complex it is, and how even though it feels a lot of the time that you're not making any progress because it's like research and sometimes you're not finding anything, you're always like learning new things and like building on top of stuff. And I think that's just kind of fun and neat. So it's definitely solidified my like future a little bit more into going into research.
Oh, that's great. Good to hear that there's a bright future in research careers for you guys. What would you say to people who are thinking about either maybe inviting one of their friends or their peers, or if there's a faculty member out there wanting to encourage their students to apply to the REU program? What's something that you wish you would have known at the beginning of the summer?
That's a good question. Well, I think for me, I would have wanted to know that it's virtual, because that was a big shock. But I mean, that turned out fine, especially working at the SimCenter. That didn't change anything. But I guess that was kind of like the shift from when I applied to when I actually got in. I didn't know that it was going to be virtual.
Yeah,
By
some
then.
insider baseball on that is we didn't either. and Robin Nelson and the ECO team done a great job of still sounds like making it a great experience in spite of the challenging environment that we're in, where some places can't do in person as much as we would like to.
No, but go ahead, Claire.
I was just gonna say, I think for like people that are considering applying to the RU program, really just stress the fact that you don't need to have prior research experience in order to do this. I don't have any prior research experience, and I was pretty nervous coming in that I was going to feel really behind and not know what I was doing. But they do a really great job of just introducing you to the process of doing research and writing a paper and creating a poster. So I think that that's something important, like not to like hold yourself back from it, even though you might feel like you're not experienced enough for it.
Yeah,
really good.
I definitely agree with that 100%. The mentorship is really good, at least in this Nahari program. Robin does a really good job, and Dr. Vielma does a really good job with, going through the entire research process step by step, and, very systematically, like Claire said. And I would also say for someone who has maybe a little bit of research experience, that it's a really, really good program, because at least at the SimCenter, and, Will and Claire can probably back me up on this, we're not really treated like interns. We're kind of treated like researchers in our own right. So we're given a lot of good responsibility. We do get closely mentored, and, our postdocs have been really good, but we are allowed to, make our own conclusions, write our own, research, and kind of be our own independent researchers. And I don't think you get that experience in, many other programs. And I feel like it'll give us a really good edge if we decide to continue in the research path and go into a PhD program. It's a really, really good starting point.
Yeah.
Yeah, I would like add on to that if someone is considering the RU program, thinking more about it as like kind of like a job kind of thing where they tell you what to do and you have to do it, I would say I noticed that somewhat of shift of that for me, it was so far, it has been more of a learning experience where I'm actually given the opportunity to learn so much about so many different fields, and like get to learn about things that I want to do and kind of take the project where I want it to head, more than just having it put on me.
Okay, so Aditya, you were talking about something really important. Actually, a couple of things that I wanted to highlight here of the strength of the NERI network and mentoring. And one of the things that we like to talk about is in the REU program, and actually throughout your whole career as researchers, is helping you be able to increase your ability to hold greater and greater responsibility within a research team. And the REU program sounds like, from your perspective, has been helping you, learn how to do that, increasing your abilities, giving you a really safe environment to practice new skills without big consequences when you fail, which helps you, give you the confidence to keep moving forward. Does that sound about right?
Definitely. Spot on.
And then the network piece, I mean, we've got, as you guys know, but for anybody who's listening who may not be familiar, there's 12 different facilities, 8 of which have experimental components to them. And so you've got access to ask questions of people at the UC Davis Centrifuge, or the UC San Diego Large Shake Table, or the Rapid facility at UW, or on the coastal engineering side, OSU and Pedro Lamonaco and his crew out there, or and we've even got people who are involved in the network coordination office who are coastal engineers, like Cheryl N. Blaine from the Office of Naval Research. And so you can have access to these world-class researchers and facilities to ask questions as you're developing your projects and writing your papers and presenting at conferences and things. It's really an amazing community. Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, definitely. And I would second that and affirm that all the way. And I think we are in a really good spot at the SimCenter specifically because, like you said, 8 of those facilities are experimental. So we can use data that some of them produce and then use it in our research. They can use the results we produce. And the cross collaboration is something that, like I said, I applied to many RU programs, but none of them were really like this, where there's such open collaboration between facilities and between communities at different schools. So that's something that's really good about the NARI program.
Yeah.
And really, it opens a lot of doors of the potential of things you can do, even if you go beyond the experimental sites, like having a site with a supercomputer and like design safe and TAC and all that at UT Austin really expands the type of research you can do within this field.
Yeah. It's interesting too. I forgot to mention the UT Austin shaker trucks too in the earlier piece. But yeah, I mean, you're right there. You can go talk to Dr. Stokey and the other professors you mentioned, as well as you're developing your software models at UC Berkeley. It's really cool that you're able to have that practical side of everything you're doing. That's great. So what's next for you guys after the summer's over? Looking at that, finishing up your senior year, where are you guys headed next?
I think for me, still considering my options, I'm definitely going to start applying to grad school towards the end of this year. So that's coming up pretty soon. So making a list of places I'm interested in, and a lot of that is based on some of the work that I'm seeing at the REU program. So that's definitely came at the right time to consider my next steps. But yeah, so that's the plan, I guess.
Yeah, I'm pretty much on the same page as Will, where I definitely want to pursue graduate school, but I don't really know where I'm going to go yet, or exactly what I'm going to do. But throughout the summer, even being able to talk with other RU students about what they plan on doing and where they might want to go has been really useful. And I've been getting a lot of advice on what I should do. And so just trying to figure all that out, I guess.
Yep. And I guess I'll third wheel that too. Same thing. So going into grad school, I'm more looking at direct admit PhD programs if I can from undergrad. And like Will said, it'll probably be right after the summer that the applications open up and I'll have to start.
That's great. Any of you guys planning on going to the AGU fall meeting in December down in New Orleans?
Had not planned on it, no.
Ooh. That would be a good, if you could swing it or you can get some funding to go. If you hadn't heard of this, the American Geophysical Union, and obviously last year was virtual because everything was, but they're doing it in person again this year, which is going to be amazing. And we have a booth as NARI, and it's at least 2 years ago in 2019. It'll probably be different now, but there was 25,000 people there from all sorts of different physical and earth sciences. So geotech, geophysicists, coastal engineers, meteorologists, oceanographers, just all over the place. And would be a really great networking opportunity for any of you guys or any of your peers listening. And they also have a huge poster section. I mean, an entire like big presentation hall, exhibition hall, so you can get some good ideas of maybe future research opportunities or PIs to collaborate with as you go through your graduate career. So highly encourage you guys to check it out. And I imagine New Orleans in December ought to be pretty fun. Is there maybe some way that either from the NERI side or just kind of academic life in general that could support you as student researchers even better? Like what's something, man, I wish we could do this.
I wish personally that does give me an idea, like based on a personal experience. So I'm in a dual degree program at OSU. So there are a lot of credits to complete in 4 years. So a lot of classes that I have to fit in each semester. And, I didn't know I wanted to go into research when I came into school. Kind of like Claire, I started out as a business major and then moved into engineering. So I was kind of late to the party in that way. So after my second year is when I kind of got involved in research and geotech and all that good stuff. So if I had to make a change, I wish that universities in general would allow for more like a transfer of credits to like just pure research. Like if I could take away some of my classes and replace that with research, that would be very useful for someone like me who wants to go into, a PhD program. I know they do that even at OSU, where I go, they do it, but I think they cap that at between 1 and 3 hours of credits. And I do a lot more than that when I'm during the semester at school, but I have to balance, these really hard classes, junior and senior year, with that research. So if there was a way to kind of mediate that and make it, more balanced, I feel like that would be a good thing that could help student researchers. That's
a really good observation. I don't know if you've heard of Matthew McConaughey's new book, Green Lights. Anybody read it yet?
I've heard about it. Yeah.
He was talking about that same thing in film school of like, I'm taking all these classes that really don't actually get me what I need to be marketable in the film world. Can you just give me C's if I show up for the exams so that, I can go out there and actually get acting jobs? And not saying that that's what you're asking for, but kind of it would be if there's an equivalent of, hey, I want to do more research. And if I'm doing really good in research and can at least, show up for the exams, quote unquote, you'd be set up better for a research career.
Yeah, definitely. And it seems like it worked out for him. So
yeah. Exactly.
I think there should be more work done in promoting introducing freshmen to undergraduate research. I think at least in my experience, I didn't really know much of my options till towards the end of my sophomore year, junior year. And also I had the benefit of my brother doing undergraduate research in mechanical engineering, but at least I knew the process of like reaching out to professors and that kind of thing. But I didn't feel like for someone coming that does not know anything, I don't really know how easily they could get into this sort of thing.
So how could we do that? Because I had a very similar experience. I had no idea of the opportunities when I was going through undergrad and didn't take advantage of any of them. So how would you communicate that to a freshman who's overwhelmed with just getting into school and trying to survive? How do you get through with something that they would care about?
I think how all undergraduates have an introductory course to their major, like an introduction to civil engineering or those kind of things. I think those classes would be more beneficial if they're a lot smaller and a lot more focused on vague topics and more focused on your opportunities during the next 4 years of what you could actually learn here instead of just what you might end up doing in the future. I think that would be helpful.
That's really good.
I would say also to like students, like freshmen going in and trying to like get involved in different things, is to get involved in like clubs that have to do with your major. We have a club, it's called WISE, Women in Science and Engineering. and they have just provided me with a lot of insight on like just internships and how to get involved in research and like what to do as like a minority in STEM and stuff like that. And I think that's kind of really important because then you know a lot about what major you're going into and like the field you're going into and how to take advantage of that. So I think like looking into like clubs that have to do with your major is really helpful as well.
That's a really good point. Especially for women engineers out there, you got SWE, Society of Women Engineers, and all sorts of clubs like that are, like you said, really helpful in that networking and helping you make the most of those opportunities. That's great. Awesome. Yeah, I just really appreciate you guys taking the time out of, I know you've got a ton going on this summer and still needed some time to rest at least once a little bit. I know you're young, but you still need sleep eventually. So I appreciate you guys taking the time and looking forward to seeing what comes out of your, illustrious research careers ahead of you. And hopefully we'll see you again when you're graduated with your PhDs and getting your postdocs and working at one of the NARI sites. It's going to be really amazing to see the future ahead of you guys. So really excited for all of you, and feel free to keep in touch, of course, as things go along. And any way that anybody in the NARI network can help you, as you know, and I've been talking with about so far, we're a very supportive bunch.
Definitely. Thanks for having us, Dan.
Yeah, it was
Thank
great.
you.
Thanks for listening to today's episode of Design Safe Radio. This show is sponsored by the National Science Foundation grant number 1612144. You can subscribe to Design Safe Radio on iTunes, Stitcher, or wherever you find your podcasts. Please leave us a review so we can improve the show. Please also help others find our episodes in iTunes. Thanks for your feedback and support. You can find out more about NARI at designsafe-ci.org, on Facebook at Design Safe Radio, or on Twitter at NARI Design Safe.